Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to War in the Pacific, Admirals Edition, our play-by-email game against XTRG. Yours truly is playing as the Allies, and XTRG is playing as the Japanese. We're on to December 24th. Today we'll be giving the orders for December 25th, but we're we're seeing the results of the orders for December 24th. At the moment. You can see here we're starting off with a submarine attack near Midway Island, and our lovely Mark 14 torpedoes, those pieces of garbage, failed to detonate alongside that Japanese AMC, so a little bit of a frustration there. Meanwhile, another launch of torpedoes at Midway against the AMC, and another failure there. So, two torpedo failures. Meanwhile, we're getting reports of temporary flotation repairs failing on the battlecruiser Repulse and Destroyer. Their flotation damage is low enough that I'm not that worried about it, but we'll have to take a look and see where they're at once we're out of the combat resolution phase. Meanwhile, you can see the Japanese have finally gotten around to landing on the coast of Borneo. Frankly, if I was XTRG, all of those northern Borneo cities would have fallen on the first week of the war and would have immediately begun capturing oil and fuel being produced at Miri on the northern Borneo coast. But he has not, and thus he has delayed his conquest of the Dutch East Indies. He seems to be focusing elsewhere. He seems to be focusing in the South Pacific, which maybe sort of intuitively satisfying with the threat of cutting off supplies from America to Australia, but we can still, send supplies from the West, so it's not as dire as perhaps he thinks. Anyway, a lot of submarine activity, a lot of missed torpedoes or either failed to detonate. You can see there the Sea Raven actually launched a torpedo against a Japanese destroyer, which was a little bit brave on his part. But it has now succumbed to Japanese depth charge attacks. You can see here the patterns were somewhat close, but apparently the Japanese escorts did not score any hits and failed to detect it after a little bit. So the Sea Raven should get away scot-clean. Meanwhile, Japanese reconnaissance seems to have intensified south of Singapore. As you'll remember, we escaped with the battleship Prince of Wales, which is very badly damaged, but we escaped from the clutches of the Japanese in Singapore by running it south at a time when the Japanese search planes seemed to mostly be focused on the anti-submarine campaign against our subs off the peninsula of Malaya. Fortunately, that coincided with our escape from Singapore, and as a result, I do not believe that XTRG has spotted the Prince of Wales. Surely he's wondering where she's at. I think the last time he spotted her, she was heading into Singapore, so he may think she's still there, but again, no activity for about a week now with the Prince of Wales as far as the Japanese are concerned. So it's certainly possible he thinks maybe she's trying to escape. I'm not sure what he thinks, but at the end of the day, she's well clear of Japanese air cover. The only question is if she runs into a submarine. Meanwhile, you can see here 26 Japanese Oscar 1As, so very maneuverable Army fighters, but they lack a heavy punching cannon, are flying a fighter sweep over Singapore. We've got over 60 aircraft intercepting. You can see here right now we've got 26 Buffaloes, 17 H-81A3s, which are basically P-40Bs. We've got 5 399D Buffaloes, 3 75A Hawks, 5 P-40B Warhawks, and 13 P-40E Warhawks. We have a max effort cap of our 100-plus fighters that are based out of Singapore, as well as Dutch fighters based out of Djambi on the Sumatran island in the Dutch East Indies here, just a little bit, literally the island just directly to the left of Singapore here. You can see the Japanese are sweeping with 26 of these Oscars. We put a max effort cap up mainly because our hope was to intercept Japanese fighters that had been periodically sweeping over Singapore. The Japanese have been sweeping with about 16 Oscars and 16 Zeros every turn. And so my thought was, our aircraft are vastly inferior to the Japanese aircraft, and our training is also inferior, but my hope was if we were able to muster, 3-to-1 odds, then we'd be able to even the odds a bit and maybe give the Japanese fighter pilots a bit of a bloody nose. Didn't quite materialize as I thought. The Japanese sweeped in here with a bit more than I had hoped, 26 Oscars to the 16 that they showed. I think it was 16, maybe it was 20. that they showed last turn. In any event, this is a stronger force than we've seen, but I don't see a lot of stuff getting destroyed to this point. Just as I say that, there's an H-81 that gets a critical hit against it. But the Japanese Oscars kind of lack for punch. The 1B, I think, has a cannon. The 1A does not. So these are good fighters by Japanese standards. The other Japanese army fighter, the Nate, is terrible. It's very maneuverable. It's terrible, though. It's just a bad fighter. And it's basically the Japanese equivalent of the Buffalo. Maneuverable, but really not going to hurt anybody. Oh, there we go. We got an Oscar right there. But the Oscar is actually, I think it might have been the most produced Japanese fighter of World War II. And a lot of times, its maneuverability was comparable to the Zero. It's just the early models lacked a little bit of the firepower, but it's still a very deadly and very quality aircraft. So hopefully we can give it a little bit of a lesson here as it runs into oh, by the way, we've got more H-81s that have flown in now. We started, I think, with 17. We're up to 20. We still have 24 Buffaloes, 7 Warhawks, 13 Warhawks, 2 Hawks, and 5. So you can see here this combat is kind of continuing. We're going to fast forward through this, and we'll see what the end results are. As you can see, that number of Japanese planes steadily goes down. Wow. So we really deployed pretty much our whole combat air patrol here. 26 of the Flying Tigers, 45 Buffaloes, 7 B339D Buffaloes, the Dutch Buffaloes, 3 CW-21B Demons, 3 75A 7 Hawks, 9 P-40B Warhawks, and 20 P-40E Warhawks. Meanwhile, according to this, and I don't know how truthful this is, we didn't lose any aircraft, and the Japanese lost 2 Oscars destroyed. So that is mission accomplished right there. We overwhelmed him with, what is this anyway? This is 71, 78, 81, 84, 93... So 113 fighters versus 26, so not quite 5-1 odds, I guess 4-1 odds. But that turned out well for us with 2 Oscars destroyed, no Allied losses. So that's a very good start. Oh, shit. So he must have reinforced his AM-6 Zeros. How the hell did he get 50 Zeros over here? Jesus Christ. Now, it looks like only 14 of them are currently in combat, but the report said 50 Zeros were incoming on Singapore, and what appears to be another fighter sweep. I did not gamble for this. This is going to be bad. The Zero is basically the Oscar, but with a cannon, so it's far deadlier. It's a naval aircraft, so the Oscars are operated by the armies, the Zero or the Army. The Zero is operated by the Japanese Navy, highly trained pilots, highly skilled crews. Even a 2-1 advantage in numbers for us would favor the Japanese pretty heavily, and I don't even think we're going to get 2-1 because some of our planes are probably landed at Singapore sort of rearming and refueling after that first fight earlier in the day. God damn it, I thought he might have like 16 or maybe 20 Zeros, but not 50. We'll see if they all get in the fight. Hopefully they don't. But you can already see he's destroyed multiple aircraft on our end. You see the little red pop-up that indicates a destroyed aircraft, and there's an H-81 aborting because of damage, so it probably won't be available tomorrow. Its pilot might even be wounded. There's an H-81 being destroyed, so this is not a good start to the fight. We'll fast forward through this thing and we'll see what the combat result is. You can see more of his aircraft are flying in. He's got 37, which made it over Singapore. It did say moderate rain, which I don't know if that matters for anything, but you can see here 50 Zeros were engaged, 26 H-81s, 40 Buffaloes, 6 B-339Ds, 3 Demons, 2 Hawks, 8 Warhawks, 19 Warhawks. So that gets us up to 27, 29, 32, 38, 78, 98, 94. So 104 aircraft against 50 Zeros. He lost 1 Zero. We lost 3 H-81s, 8 Buffaloes, 2 Demons, 1 Warhawk, 1 Warhawk. So we lost 15 aircraft to his 1. The Zero is a very deadly aircraft. If we had gotten 16 against 120, I think we would have done okay. You know, at like better than 5-1, 7-1 odds, but and just barely 2-1 odds. You know, the Zero is gonna win that every day. That's a very bloody nose. We'll have to see what the actual report is. You know, the combat reports are definitely heavily influenced by fog of war. The losses are likely very different, although potentially worse for us. when we get into the actual fight. So we'll have to see how things played out, but I'm not terribly encouraged by that. Meanwhile, strategic bombing continuing to occur against Chinese forces here in China. Chinese forces in China. 46 whoa. We'll see how many of these fly in. He had 46, so 29 Japanese bombers. He had 46, but it said unescorted bombers were turning away. 29 Japanese bombers, the KI-21 to a Sally. I think this is their best land attack bomber, are trying to go for Singapore. Meanwhile, we have over 20 aircraft intercepting them, and they're all fighters, and the Japanese fighters are nowhere to be found. So as much as we were sitting ducks against the Japanese Zeros, he's going to be an even bigger sitting duck against our fighters. Our fighters may not be up to the match of the Zero or the Oscar in dogfighting, but we can certainly rip to shreds unescorted Japanese bombers, which are basically kindling. They don't have armor, they don't have refueling SEAL tanks. These things are absolutely turkeys that we're going to blast out of the sky. They don't even have much in the way of defensive guns. They're not like B-17s that have like 11, 50 caliber machine guns. It's basically the Battle of Britain if the Germans sent in Heinkel 111s without escort. This is a turkey shoot, folks. We are destroying a lot of these things. We're already 4 down, and, I don't think the majority of our aircraft have even engaged yet. There's another one that goes down. So for everything that we lost against these Zeros, hopefully we will make up for, and then some, against these Japanese Sallies. And the other doubly beneficial thing here, folks, is that the Sally is the Japanese best land attack bomber at this stage in the war. So every plane we shoot down is one of his best Army-based land attack planes. I'd say the GM3 and the GM4 for the Navy are better, but at least as far as the Army aircraft, this is the best they have to offer. And there was another one destroyed. We're up to 7 aircraft that we're showing destroyed here. We're just ripping these guys to shreds. Even if they make it through and drop their payloads, the casualties that they take now, the flak that they'll suffer over the target, all impacts their ability to successfully bomb their target. So they'll probably bomb wide even if they do make it into bomb. So this is a very good result so far. This is completely turning on its head that dogfight engagement that we just had, and hopefully killing a lot of Japanese pilots, because at the end of the day, any pilots he loses here are still pilots he has to replace, and the Japanese only have so many pilots to go around. So a lot of Sallies being damaged, a lot of them being destroyed. We're up to 8. Let's fast forward through this thing. Oh, yes! Went down to 0. It says we destroyed 18 Japanese bombers, and probably all 18 of their crew, too, because they're flying over hostile territory. So if they're not killed in the actual shoot-down, then they're probably going to be prisoners of war and missing in action, and the Japanese won't get them back. So that, no losses, 18 bombers destroyed. Hell yes. That was fucking awesome, guys. That was borderline knocking out the Japanese regiment at sea off of Mercy. That was brilliant. 3 more Oscars, only 3 Oscars. They're coming in uncoordinated, sweeping against 40-plus aircraft. So we'll just fast forward through that. You can see no losses on either side. Meanwhile, yes, 13 more Sallies are coming in. 13 unescorted. Yes! Let's just fast forward through this thing. 4 of them did get through and drop their payloads. It looked like 1 might have been destroyed by flak. So we got 1 destroyed by flak, 6 more shot down. That's another 7 Japanese bombers destroyed. 2 more damaged, which might crash on landing. Oh boy. No Allied losses. I don't even think he got a bomb on target so far. Wow. It's amazing how quickly, honestly, guys, I was shocked when I saw the 50 Zeros. I was basically thinking, fuck, he's destroyed the Singapore Air Force early. But, man, this thing kind of turned on its head here. 7 more aircraft destroyed. What is that, like 25 bombers that we're up to? Woo. All right. I don't think they got any runway hits or anything like that. Another 16... God damn it. Another 16 enemy Oscars? What has he had? Like 100 fighters over Singapore? We can't keep up with that. At least they're Oscars. Hopefully they don't do too much damage. Looks like we turned them back before they got to the target, but we lost another 4 fighters to his 2. Honestly, 2-to-1 odds, I'm okay with that. He had 16 fighters engaged. We were only able to bring 29, 31, 44 fighters, so a little less than 3-to-1. Another sweep, this one with progressively fewer Oscars here. Another sort of segment goes in. 2 Oscars. Wow, 2 Oscars destroyed to just 1 Buffalo. Okay. I sure hope that's true. 21 more Sallies. Jesus. What is he up to? Like 21, 16. He's gotta have close to 100 Sallies coming into bomb here. We are intercepting, but we don't have quite as many aircraft intercepting. So let's fast forward here. It looks like we only got 2 of them before the bombing target. Now it is moderate rain. So, fortunately, that probably makes his bombing less accurate. It looks like 8 made it out of there. Our interceptors intercepted after the bombing raid. We got 3 more destroyed, 3 more damaged, so basically half of his force. He did get 2 hits on the runway, but that probably won't do anything. This is a level 7 airfield. I wouldn't be surprised if we've got like 1 or 2 runway damage. Basically nothing. So more recon over Singapore, bombing of Hankow. We're bombing Japanese troops that are retreating for Yichang and harassing them. A lot of recon going on throughout the Pacific. Nothing so far in the South Pacific near Fiji. So no surprises there, if you will. Oh my god, another 24 enemy fighters. Let's see, he had 50 zeros in the first sweep, 24 zeros in this sweep. That's 74 zeros deployed to this. Oh, fuck. And he's diving from 24,000 feet? Really? I think we need to go back to our house rule about diving from altitude. We did have a house rule that said you can't have an aircraft that flies above the altitude at which it starts to lose its maneuverability. So, like, once you get to... There's different bands of altitude, and aircraft get less maneuverable as they get higher. With that being said, some of the aircraft have such absurdly low bands that it seemed a little unfair to, adhere to that house rule, but maybe we need to go back to that, because Zero's flying at 24,000. I don't even think the Buffalo can fly above 21, and the Zero definitely loses maneuverability higher than that, so I don't know. We did have a house rule there. I don't think either of us has really abided by it. The major house rule I've abided by so far is the fact that the B-17s, the 4-engine heavies, aren't doing skip bombing, because while that was effective in real life, 1, it didn't really start at this stage in the war, and 2, it's a little too effective in game. So, anyway, we'll see here. All right, a lot of recon. I'm going to fast forward through some of this. Not a lot of interesting stuff. And the I-162, oh, geez. So we have a cruiser mine layer, which just left, I think it was Palembang, or maybe it had left the Java island and was on the way to Palembang to lay mines. Got hit by 2 torpedoes, on fire, heavy damage. It's gonna, yep, there it goes under. A ship laden with explosives, hit by 2 torpedoes, sinks. Who would have thought? Meanwhile, the Express, more temporary flotation failures. It's right at the edge of the map, so hopefully it gets to South Africa okay. Okay, so we're on to the final phase. Oh, wait, no, we still have to do land combat. So we're bombarding his troops near Mersing. We're not actually launching an attack yet, so Japanese lost 24 more casualties, 1 more squad destroyed. Meanwhile, Japanese shock attack at Ocean Island up here near Nauru, just west of Tarawa, sort of in the heartland of Japanese forces. We had a couple of Catalina observation aircraft that had been based there. A small attacking force of 250 men destroys 1 Catalina, causes 122 Allied non-combatants to surrender. And I think now we're through these phases here, so we're into the final little bit before it's going to kick me out. So I'll go ahead and just kind of pass it over to myself. Next thing you see is I'll be talking through my plans for Christmas Day of 1942. Sorry, 1941. Christmas Day of 1941. In our next turn. So I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Alright guys, the good news and the bad news. The good news first, I guess. According to our intelligence, which could be wrong, we shot down 61 enemy aircraft via air-to-air combat last turn. We destroyed 3 by flak, and the Japanese suffered 16 operational losses. Compare that to 35 and 15 for us. We lost 1 fewer operational. We lost 26 fewer in air-to-air combat. We lost none to flak. So if that's true, the Japanese Air Force was stunned. We're claiming 32 Ki-21 Sallies, We're claiming 12 Oscars, but we also, and 12 Oscar 1s, 7 Oscar Bs, only 4 zeros, though. Meanwhile, however, we're claiming we also lost 17 Buffalo 1s, 18 H-81s, those hurt, 9 P-40 Warhawks in this last turn. This is a rough turn for our Air Force. It's worse for his. Long term, I think it's worse for him because he probably lost almost all of the pilots, too, because they were flying over hostile territory. But if we just look at our fighter force, we went from about 110 aircraft down to 60. We went from about 100 aircraft operational down to 27. So a pretty huge loss. If they give us a little bit of a break, we will repair these, right? Like we've got 33 not ready. We can have 60 aircraft in 2 or 3 days. And we'll be, back to very strong strength. Also, it's not quite as bad because I actually, in this turn, I'm transferring 2 squadrons. One of them is going by rail, so you don't see it yet. But 2 squadrons to Johor Bahru in an effort to make sure that we sort of diversify our fighter force and keep some of them out of the limelight. So we actually moved 8 H-81A3s to Johor Bahru, and we also moved, I think it was a P-40 squadron. So about 16 aircraft were also removed from Singapore, which really means like we don't have 60, we had 80 almost. So not quite as bad as it looks. Meanwhile, at least in terms of the facilities perspective, we didn't suffer any damage at all at Singapore. None of his bombers got any bombs on target, or if they did, they were quickly repaired. So that's the good news. If we look at the other good news, top pilots, we have 2 aces. Armstrong G.H. of the 24th U.S. Pursuit Group 17th Squadron, P-40E pilot, and Brownwell, also first lieutenant of the same squadron, has 5 kills. Additionally, 2 other pilots in the 17th Squadron have 4 kills. So this appears to be the enemy bomber killer squadron as things play out. Only 1 pilot on this entire list who has more than 1 kill is killed. Nobody else is wounded, so we're getting some experienced and qualified pilots. We lost 11 KIAs. If he really lost 80 planes last turn, I would guess he probably lost in the range of 30 to 40 pilots KIA, another 20 to 30 missing. He probably lost somewhere between 50 to 70 pilots last turn, or 50 to 60 pilots last turn, that he will never get back, and that is the big thing. So overall, it was a successful battle, but it was also one of those I wouldn't call it a Pyrrhic victory, because at the end of the day, it was worth it. I feel like a Pyrrhic victory usually isn't worth it. If you had told me during the entire campaign of Singapore that we would have shot down 70 enemy aircraft, in air-to-air combat, excluding flak losses, I would have taken that in a heartbeat, even if it meant our whole Air Force got annihilated. So a success, an unqualified success, but one that will leave us struggling to figure out how to contest his airspace going forward. I have set all my fighters to train, so they're all set to stand down. So hopefully we get a few more fighters ready after this turn, but we'll see. Additionally, at Mersing, I ordered everybody should be ordered to bombard. Looks like the Cavalry Regiment is still set to deliberate attacks. We'll switch them to moot. I don't want them to be moot. Interesting. Actually, why don't we order them all to shock attack? I'm curious what'll happen if we order them all to shock attack. Maybe shock attack's a bad idea. I don't know. I'm going to order everybody to... I don't know. We'll see. It'll be you know what, guys? I'm going to tentatively order them to shock attack, but I'm still probably going to go over my turn for the next 20 minutes or so off screen, so it'll be a surprise what happens next turn. We will either shock attack or we will not attack. Those are our 2 options right now. At Mersing, where he's got about 3,200 soldiers and 7 guns cut off here. We're trying to reduce this pocket, but I don't think we have enough strength, and the Allies don't have enough attack power, I don't think, to do much there, but we'll see. Meanwhile, the Prince of Wales is through the strait between Oosthaven and Batavia. Her float damage dropped 1 down to 59. I think she's out of the worst danger. Now the rest of the danger really relies on if she floods in the next week and a half that it takes her to get off map. Meanwhile, Prince of Wales, as we said, it was suffering some flotation failures. Its float damage only went up 1, so she's still safe. And the Express, the destroyer there's float damage went up 6 at 46. It's still safe. They're both making over 15 knots. Let's slow them down to mission speed. They're going to go off map this turn, and then we'll get them to Cape Town hopefully in the next 2 weeks to repair. If we go to the South Pacific, I'm bringing in more reinforcements to New Caledonia and to Fiji this turn. So I'm ordering this unit here at Newcastle to load the 18th Australian Brigade and bring it to Fiji. That's because we will be able to form the 1st Australian Infantry Division if we bring that brigade. That brigade is sort of the missing piece, if you will, to the, not the 3rd, the 1st Australian Division is somewhere around here. Here, the 1st Australian Division is almost entirely at Suva or on transports on their way to Suva. So we're ordering all of these troops to Suva so we can form the 1st Australian Division and get that bonus of having everybody in the same place. So we've got some troops currently at Newcastle that are being ordered to mount up on these transports. We have some troops at Port Kamba, which is here to the south, which are also being ordered on transports. So we're bringing in 2 more brigades into the island of Fiji to form the 1st Division. In addition to that, we're pulling 1 brigade off the island of Fiji because I feel like I'm over reinforcing Fiji. If we bring in 2 more brigades, we'll have, like 6 brigades all told on the island or en route. We've got 2 there already. 1 already moved to the west here to Nadi. I don't really want to have 6 brigades all on Fiji. That would be kind of putting all our eggs in one basket. So we're going to bring 2 more to Fiji. We're also going to take 1 that's at Fiji and we're going to move it to Nomaya, which just received some reinforcements, so it's up to a level 69 garrison. That additional brigade will bring it over 100. And then in addition to that, we've got a ton of artillery on Fiji, and I kind of thought about it for a bit, and I thought it would make more sense to bring the 5th Coastal Artillery into Nomaya, just because, they've got 16 6-inch guns. Adding that to Fiji would be nice, but I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, and we already have 2 artillery battalions here at Suva and 1 at Nadi, so we have quite a bit of guns. We've got 24 75mm guns, and I'm assuming those are coastal defense also, so I think that leaves us in pretty good shape. In addition, we're going to bring the 1st Australian Brigade to Suva, and then we're also going to bring, where is it? The 4th Australian Light Anti-Aircraft is going to be brought into Nomaya to bolster its anti-aircraft capabilities, although I may redirect them to Fiji, we'll see. But the 45th Australian Infantry Battalion is also going to Suva. So between the 40 or so, basically 109 when that 1st Brigade arrives, 32, so we'll have about a 140 defensive strength at Nomaya, and then we'll have about a 300 defensive strength at Nadi, about 120 strength at Nadi, 300 strength defense at Suva. We have 2 infantry regiments headed to Pago Pago. That'll give us a 320 defense. And then when the American infantry regiment arrives at Fiji, that'll bring that defense up another 160. So probably at Suva we'll have around 460, and then Nadi around 150. At Nomaya we'll have around 200, and at Pago Pago we'll have around 320. So 320, 500, 200 or so. So that's kind of the strength of the Fiji line. All we need is XTRG to give us about another week or so, and everything will be in place. I'm not really going to talk much about my carriers. I've decided it's best to leave them out of this, so I actually did transfer our Marine aviators off of the carriers. They've got longer range. The Buffalo actually has reasonable range for transfer rate at 31 hexes, so I moved a squadron of Buffaloes that were Marine aviators onto Pago Pago, and then I also moved the squadron of SB-2U Vindicators, 16 of them, onto the island of Pago Pago. So we brought 32 Marine aircraft to Pago Pago. The intention will be to pound Savi into the ground and get these guys some experience flying constant dive bomber ops. In addition to that, we've got the 20 or 30 aircraft or so moving to Suva, the F-4Fs, and some Dauntless dive bombers as well. What else? Here's the 164th Infantry Regiment on the way to Suva. We've also got some cruisers over here. Carriers are going to move north. I've decided, since we pulled the Marines off those carriers and now it's just the carrier aviators, I want to move these guys back to Pearl Harbor in order to ensure that we keep the carriers safe. Because if he is really going to make a play for Fiji, then I want to make sure that our carriers aren't going to get caught there. The main reason to have the carriers around was to transfer those 50 or so Marine aviators. They've done that, so now their job, head north, get out of Dodge. And once his carriers do reveal themselves, I'm going to sprint in and make a strike at Midway. We're going to bomb any ships he has, and if not, then we're at least going to get some target practice in on his ground troops, and then we'll retreat back to Midway. It may also throw his invasions into a loop. If he's bringing his carriers down here toward Fiji, Nomaya, Pago Pago, and he's trying to sort of reduce this defensive line, if all of a sudden my carriers appear north, he may take the bait and try and run down it and catch him. I think Pago Pago's the key. Nomaya is a little bit of a risk. Like, if he went for Nomaya, he could put a really good airbase there. But really, in my opinion, the prize is Fiji. But in order to keep Fiji sustainable, you have to hold Pago Pago. Nomaya is not as important, because if Nomaya falls, yes, it gives him a great G3M base, which, how far could he reach? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So he could reach almost all the way to New Zealand with torpedoes, with his G3Ms. Certainly could reach inland to Australia. So it would play havoc with our supply routes. Theoretically, though, we could divert a little bit further south. We could basically run everything into New Zealand and then run convoys from New Zealand into Australia. So we'd still have a supply line from the east to Australia. And New Zealand is a nice little stopping point anyway, because it does have industry. So even if he got like New Caledonia, that wouldn't be the end of the world. Fiji would be the real challenge, though, because it would not only pose that same sort of logistical problem, it would move it a little bit further east, which means we'd have to burn a lot more fuel to divert even further south, but it would also mean the loss of a lot of victory points from the game's perspective. Suva's worth 525 to the Japanese and 75 for Nadi. Nomaya is only worth 300. Well, it is worth 300 to the Allies, but it's only worth 30 to the Japanese. That's kind of interesting. But to me, the key in this whole operation, Fiji and Pago Pago really defend each other. Pago Pago is that naval base that's really close to Fiji, so you can sprint in supplies to Fiji. If he takes New Caledonia, it doesn't really affect that. We can still defend Fiji and Pago Pago without New Caledonia. If we lose Fiji, New Caledonia is exposed and probably lost, and Pago Pago might be exposed and lost as well. If we lose Fiji and Pago Pago, Nomaya doesn't even matter. So, like, Nomaya is easily isolated by him. If he takes Fiji, Nomaya falls. If he takes Nomaya, Fiji does not necessarily fall, and that's because of Pago Pago. If he takes Pago Pago, maybe that's actually the more important one now that I think about it, because if he takes Pago Pago, then Fiji and New Caledonia probably fall. So I would say, in terms of order of importance for my ability to defend this position, Pago Pago number 1, Fiji number 2, New Caledonia number 3. And again, that's just because of the fact that Pago Pago is the gateway into this 3-island chain. It is close enough, it is large enough, it has the capability to become a level 4 airfield and a level 2 port. It's already a level 2 port. And you can't defend Fiji without Pago Pago. It is the doorway to this island chain. And if you lose the door, then the rest of the house falls. If you lose the back door, you've still got the front door. But if you lose the front door, the back door is really not accessible. So that was really convoluted thinking. Long-winded way of saying Pago Pago is the most important base here. Fiji's the second most important base. And Pago Pago's context is just within keeping Fiji open. Nomaya really doesn't add defense to Fiji, because if we hold Nomaya but we lose Pago Pago, we have no way to get reinforcements to Nomaya easily. If we hold Pago Pago, we can easily reinforce Fiji, even if we lose Nomaya. So I guess I'm sending reinforcements to Nomaya, I'm sending reinforcements to Fiji, and also to Pago Pago, but the two key ones to me are Fiji and Pago Pago, and I could probably ignore New Caledonia falling if he makes a play for it. Everybody follow? That clear as day, or was that just a weird exposition? Anyway, we're bringing in a lot of fuel into Perth. We're up to 45,000 fuel. In addition to the 45,000 already in port, we've got another 53,000 or so on ships that are in the process of unloading. So there's that. These guys just carried stuff, so we're going to send these guys to Cape Town because I'm trying to set up my supply convoys from the west of Australia. The nice thing is, even if the east falls, he has no real way to intervene on the west. The problem is the west is a lot further away, so it's more challenging to maintain. At Darwin, we now have both supplies and fuel, 31,000 fuel and over 20,000 supplies. These guys are also going to Cape Town. Apparently they're going to run out of fuel. We'll have to figure that out. These guys are unloading, and these guys are already unloaded, so we'll go ahead and disband them. All right. So meanwhile, we've also brought in additional convoys here to the Balkapin to pull fuel out of there. So we brought in some 21,000 tanker support. We also have some AKLs. We're going to try and pull some 50,000 fuel out of Balkapin to make sure he doesn't capture that. We're not going to be able to do much about Palembang. We are trying to suck some fuel down here to Oosthaven, but it's kind of limited in what we can do. We've already talked about our plans in Malaya. And I know that wasn't a huge, long episode, but I don't really think much else changes this turn. I've moved some of my fighters back from the coast at Wenkao to Changsha and to Nanyang. We're pulling our large force that had been at Xinyang, the 1,300 assault value. We're pulling them back to Nanyang, where we're going to build a fortress. So we're going to kind of hold Changsha, we're going to hold Luoyang, we're going to hold Nanyang as sort of a northern barrier to his advance on Xi'an and the oil-rich cities there. Meanwhile, Yichang is going to defend the flank around the Changsha line along these cities as well. So our two main defensive lines, or I guess our defensive line here is Changchao to Nanyang to Yichang to Changsha along the river to the west. And then, that's kind of the main thing going on right now in China. It's about all I got for you guys this turn. So we moved fighters into Pago again to keep that important base clear. We're moving reinforcements to Nomaya. We're moving reinforcements to Fiji. We're pulling the carriers out to head north, just in the event that, if I really think he's going to deploy the KB, I don't want my carriers to be near. But as soon as the carriers strike in the south, if they do, be it Fiji, be it Nomaya, be it Pago Pago, wherever they strike, hopefully my carriers are back near Pearl, so then we can drive on Midway right away and do some damage to the apparently 7,000 troops that are stationed on the island. And that's where we're at. So we'll see how things play out. We'll see if we do that shock attack at Mersing. I need some time to think about it, but I did want to go ahead and record this now, so it'll just be a little bit of a surprise for you guys, depending on what we do. Anyway, guys, I hope you're enjoying this series. I hope you're enjoying this video, and until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.